This was the week where we discovered just who exactly is helping to stop Biden's $2.3 trillion infrastructure plan, or 1.7 or 1 point, I don't know what it is. It's probably just $500 billion at this point. Thanks to the work of the investigative unit of Greenpeace Uncovered, we heard lobbyists in their own words explain how they're trying to tank the infrastructure bill. Listen to them talk about who they're targeting in the Senate and how they're doing it.
The wins are such that it would be difficult to categorize them all.
Did we join some of these shadow groups to work against some of the early efforts? Yes, that's true. But there's nothing illegal about that.
Yeah. This is Keith McCoy, one of Exxon Mobil's top Capitol Hill lobbyists. And this is Dan Easley. Until February this year, he was Exxon's leading White House lobbyist. Unearthed posed as recruitment consultants and told them we had a client who admired their work. Then we interviewed them on Zoom and asked them to tell us what they and the other lobbyists at Exxon have been up to.
We're playing defense because President Biden's talking about this big infrastructure package, and he's going to pay for it by increasing corporate taxes. You stick to highways and bridges, then a lot of the negative stuff starts to come out because
for you guys,
because there's a germaneness, right? That doesn't make any sense for a highway bill. Why would you put in a something on emissions reductions on climate change to oil refineries in a highway bill?
Who's the crucial guys for you?
Well, Senator Capito, who's the ranking member on Environment and Public Works, Joe Manchin, I talk to his office every week, and he is the kingmaker on this because he's a Democrat from West Virginia, which is a very conservative state. Other ones that aren't talked about is Senator Coons, who's from Delaware, who has a very close relationship with Senator Biden. So we've been working with his office. Matter of fact, our CEO is talking to him next
week. Our CEO is talking to Chris Coons' office next week. I just have to say, before we talk about this, I wanted to say that after the revolution, obviously I don't advocate violence, but I want all these men to be the first to be thrown into that fiery butthole in the ocean that is burning in the Gulf of Mexico. Just right in. So this is obviously stuff that we sort of knew was going on behind the scenes, but hearing it through what feels like a pretty easy Zoom call meeting to set up, and like just a fairly open divulging of exactly what's going on. Like, I don't know, like how many calls were leading up to this call where they just openly talk about who they're lobbying. But what are your reactions, both of you, to just seeing it laid bare like that, and the names named of which senators are being targeted by Exxon Mobil?
Boston?
No, Sam, you go ahead, please.
Well, I mean, it's astonishing. There's a couple of things. I mean, the whole video is worth watching. It really is telling, not just in terms of the infrastructure bill, but the way our government works. What also astonishes me about it is I think Chris Hayes might have been the only person on television that played this.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
just like, it's sort of a silly exercise, but just imagine that, like, if there was a Zoom call where, like, I don't know. I mean, look at the play that Acorn got back in the day,
right?
And it became a national. I mean, the idea that this isn't being, sort of litigated over and over again in the national media and the national psyche is just absurd. And lastly, Chris Coons, that guy is loathsome, and he is close to the president. And if there was like any real, I mean, the idea that this is not being exploited by the right, even
right.
There's no politics in this country where that can just sort of sit out there. Chris Coons was Joe Biden's number one surrogate during the election. Wherever Joe Biden couldn't get to, Chris Coons was there. And it's also really distressing in terms of the infrastructure bill. And this should be exploited, and it's not being. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Again, why are we surprised? This is exactly like police brutality. It's always there, but like we just get to act all surprised. But when it's caught on video, this has been going on forever. I'm new to this country, and as much as I love America and its democracy and ever, it is just like out there in plain sight. where senators and I think there was like some statistics saying that a senator or a congressperson has to at least raise an average of $22,500 a day in order to raise enough money for their re-elections. So those people, they go for the people to get elected or re-elected, but their loyalty is not for the people who cast the ballot. It's for the people who paid for the campaign. And it's been going on. The dark money in politics has always been an issue in America. That is why, I mean, that's why, like under Trump, there was, remember when people talking about net neutrality, and these were like a bunch of unelected people deciding how free what about the access to the internet. These were, we did not elect those people, and yet they're deciding that. So it just like for an outsider saying, is this whole democratic and elections and midterms, is this all kind of like an act? And at the end of the day, all of our lawmakers are just under the mercy and under the direct order of the lobbyists who pay for them. So you just like have to question all of the whole thing about democracy in this country. If we are, it doesn't matter if you vote for Joe or Jim or Mike. At the end of the day, Joe, Jim, and Mike will just follow the order that's brought to him by the lobbyists, because they are the people who actually pay their salaries, not us.
Yeah, I mean, I 100%. And also, speaking of the high horse the United States loves to get on when talking about its own democracy, you know, and it's like, well, other countries, there's all these bribes paid to like police officers. And one time I was in Mexico and you could pay $50. It's legalized here. Like here, it is like, if it is buttoned up enough, then it's great. Then bribery is lovely. But you have to be in a suit in a big chair in front of a big fireplace in order for it to count, you know, or then it doesn't count as bribery. But so there was a politician who responded to this, and I agree with Sam, completely undercovered by mainstream media. And I'm glad Chris Hayes did a segment on it, but we really should be doing more. But this is what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had to say about that leak.
Serious, because this is talking about whether our basic democratic rights can be purchased. And if our rights can be purchased, our democracy can be purchased, and if democracy is purchased, it is dismantled. On one hand, it's shocking, and on the other hand, it's not, and that is tragic. You know, I think that for me, and for a lot of members of Congress, many of us have worked so hard to instill trust in our work as elected officials, and many of us do not accept a dime in corporate PAC money. I've never taken a closed-door meeting or call with a corporate lobbyist in my entire time here. And the extent to which it was almost part of their sales pitch that they have access to influential members of Congress who then take these conversations that they have with corporate lobbyists and then try to package them as bipartisan or objective. It's shameful, you know, it's shameful. And I think that it brings a lot of shame to.
Okay, I apologize that I cut that video short.
I think the best work that have been done on that comically was Veep. How like it was just like hilarious how they just like made fun of all of the lobbyist thing, and how every bill kind of like get dwarfed to nothing in order to satisfy the lobbyists in the most. I think it's one of the most intelligent comedies ever written for television, and I think that is the real word now for us in politics. It's just like corporates run this country.
Yeah.
I should also say that Ro Khanna apparently has, at the very least, threatened subpoenas about that leaked audio. I don't know if he's going to. I don't know if he's going to use that power or not. I think he sits on the Energy Committee. I'm not quite sure, or the government oversight, and he should. I hope it's not just like coming out for show, but. And Bossam's right. I mean, it's obviously it's been out there in the open, but in the same way that we have a different understanding of the way that police do their policing because of video. There's just something about hearing it and watching it that it should theoretically resonate more with the American public, but so far, no.
So we should put body cams on senators, is what you're saying.
You know what? I'm down with that.
Yeah. But the problem
I
is,
mean,
if you put
There'd be way
yeah,
too
they're
much
gonna be
stuff we
too
don't want to
much-
see.
There are
Think
going to be
about
so
what
many
we.
other scandals, like bathroom scandals
That's what I was just gonna say.
and hotel
Oh,
room
man.
scandals
Wide
and all
stance.
kinds of scandals.
Oh,
Wide
the
stand.
bathroom scandals.
Wide
With
stand.
feet slipping underneath the
Yeah.
stall, man.
Wide stance. But but you know, when we start to talk about the Supreme Court, there was a case this week that about transparency and about that dark money, and you know, the money's gotten darker just this week.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a second, but I did want to bring up, because I tweeted the video out, and of course, Revolving Door Project, which Max Moran's been on this show, tweeted back at me and was like, oh, Exxon may also be able to count on having friends in the Biden administration, because 2 former Exxon consultants are slated to be confirmed by the Senate to high-ranking positions at the Treasury Department! Exclamation point. Fun. So that's Elizabeth
Surprise.
Rosenberg and Neil McBride. Yeah. Former consultant for Exxon Mobil. Sorry, I'm trying to read who both of them are. She's repeatedly advocated for increasing U.S. natural gas and oil exports abroad, which would benefit companies like Exxon. I mean, so it's hard because we're going to get into the Supreme Court. Elections matter. There is a difference between a conservative court and a liberal court, 100%. But it's hard to see that when you've got stories like this. And when we know all this hemming and hawing over the infrastructure package, which, to be honest, the media completely goes along with, because to Bassam's point, as long as you say you got something done and you had minimal negotiation, even if what you got done was money you were supposed to spend 10 years ago, but then then you get a prize. I don't know, you get a cookie from Jake Tapper bakes you a whole tray of cookies. I believe that's what happens.
Baker.
He's great. Hey, thanks so much for watching the Bitchuation Room podcast live stream. And while you're here, why don't you just subscribe to this channel? I promise it'll be good.